The Democrats need to come up with another option, or they're undermining their strongest message, which is a true message this cycle. Democracy is on the line.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin.
Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky.
It's no big deal. The administrative state will run the country.
No, it is a big deal.
Wait, do we have a democracy?
Hey fam, welcome and welcome back to One and Done. Today we're going to be dropping in on TYT, Fox News and CNN to get all the latest on Joe Biden and that big boy NATO conference. And the master crafter of gaff is back at it. Now before we jump in, don't forget to hit that like, smash the subscribe, ring the notification bell, and let's roll that tape.
President Joe Biden had his, what everyone seems to be referring to in his cabinet, big boy press conference today at NATO. And the point was, okay, there's no prompter. There's not supposed to be a script. He's supposed to alleviate some of the concerns that Democratic voters have and members of Congress have about his cognitive decline, his mental decline. And so let's see how it went. It didn't start off so well. First, he introduced Kamala Harris in a way that wasn't accurate. So you should see for yourselves.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
This happened on the same day that he introduced Volodymyr Zelensky, the leader of Ukraine, as Putin.
That's what the compact says, loudly and clearly. And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. We're going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway, Mr. President,
I'm better.
You are a hell of a lot better.
I mean, seriously, this guy needs to take up comedy. This is ridiculous. Someone just pulled his big pants. Press conference. Now, I know we shouldn't be laughing about this, but it is ridiculous. And the knives are starting to come out.
As we witness what political insiders are calling a bomb drop in Washington. The first shots fired in the Democrats' civil war. It was Nancy Pelosi who pulled the trigger on Biden's favorite morning show.
It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short. I think overwhelming support of the caucus. It's not for me to say. I'm not the head of the caucus anymore, but he's beloved. He is respected, and people want him to make that decision.
Biden decided he's running. And Nancy Pelosi said he hasn't decided yet, but time's running out. One senior Democrat aide said, she knows he's watching. She's not an idiot. She chose those words carefully. Another one said it was a shot in the arm. Biden thought he had until Saturday before Democrats sent in the SWAT team. But Pelosi, the sharpshooter, taking aim early.
Do you believe that him waiting so long to make this decision is part of the
I'm not making any comments in the hallway about the fate of our nation.
Are you concerned whether or not he can win in November?
I think he can win.
Do you believe he should run for re-election?
I'm not speaking English to you. I'm not going to be making any statements about any of that right now in the hallway.
It's one thing for the House to buck Biden, but the Senate, the chamber close to Joe's heart, is starting to crack.
I am deeply concerned about Joe Biden winning this November because it is an existential threat to the country if Donald Trump wins.
This race is on a trajectory that is very worrisome if you care about the future of this country. Donald Trump is on track, I think, to win this election and maybe win it by a landslide and take with him the Senate and the House. For me, this isn't a question about polling. It's not a question about politics. It's a moral question about the future of our country.
Oh yes indeed, politics is a contact sport and the knives have really started to come out for Joe Biden. But the gaslighting has been off the chain. They've been gaslighting for the last 3.5 years, maybe even 4 years. This guy had no right to be anywhere near this position. And they're coming out saying they're worrying about the presidency, they're worrying about the country. But realistically, they never did. They have themselves to blame. It's pure incompetence. And like I said, gaslighting. But the other problem is Joe Biden is delusional. He's absolutely ignoring the polls.
So Zelensky's Putin, Kamala Harris is Trump, and this is the press conference where he's supposed to prove to us how great he is. But keep in mind, it's not like the Democrats have lowered the bar, so they think, well, if he doesn't die during the press conference, then he should go on. No. Well, if he doesn't fall apart at the seams, he should go on. No. He has to make up a giant deficit. He's losing in every swing state. Right now, combination of polls has him down by 3 nationally. He has to win by 5, so he's down by 8 in effect. He's at 37% approval rating. And he was at 52 when he won. He's got 15 points to make up at least. This, hey, he didn't get every single answer wrong, is not the win you think it is, especially when in the middle of the press conference, he's calling Kamala Harris Trump and Zelensky Putin. Already a disaster, already over.
And absolutely, he's getting thumped in the polls. And the reason is because the Democrats don't believe in democracy. They didn't want to have a primary. A primary is when the cream rises to the top. Now the Dems are about to throw up. And the language they're speaking now is all but conceding. They look absolutely rudderless. There's no leadership. And all Trump has to do is sit back, kick back, relax, and watch the Dems eat themselves. There's been the odd call for Biden to step down. Now that odd call is starting to turn into a chorus.
And just breaking tonight, the first Democrat member of the Senate is calling on Biden to withdraw from the race. Senator Peter Welch of Vermont. And Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is telling donors he's open to dumping Biden. So Nancy and Chuck have formed an alliance. And Biden's countering. How? By sending his staff to Capitol Hill tomorrow to beg. But an anonymous Democrat senator calls it a waste of everyone's time if Biden can't even come make the case himself. Biden's done negotiating. CNN reports that Biden is done talking about it, and he's staying in the race. But this is a delicate hostage negotiation, and if Biden thinks only God can convince him to bow out, he should prepare for this.
If he doesn't drop out in the next week or two, a whistleblower will emerge, somebody who has some fortitude, some ethics, some morals inside of Joe Biden's cabinet, somebody inside of that White House who knows what's going on, who understands the cover-up, and they will leak something to you for your primetime show.
Biden's about to realize that the presidency isn't the most powerful thing in Washington. The Democrat machine is. We're witnessing a D-Day level invasion, air, ground, sea. Barack Obama just directed George Clooney to send up the bat signal that Barack really did need to help Joe off the stage at the LA fundraiser. More on that later. Top Chicago donors are already halting fundraising lunches at the convention. But Biden reportedly saying, if major donors don't come along, we'll do it without them. Tough talk, but behind the scenes, Team Biden scrambling tonight, calling up convention delegates to head off a rebellion in Chicago. Delegates were reportedly thunderstruck at the calls. Some of them had to double check the caller ID to make sure it was from Delaware and not a prank call.
Oh yeah, they're all falling off. And apparently Obama is right behind and in on this. He's pulling the strings. And thus far, it doesn't seem like Big Mike is wanting to put her hat in. Maybe Biden can make all his problems go away by having a little more sleep.
Apparently, he denies that he goes to sleep early, even though he had gathered a group of Democratic governors to let them know that the problem is he's not getting enough sleep and he plans on taking more naps and sleeping more.
He said he's not going to do events past 8 o'clock at night because he knows he doesn't function well past 8 o'clock. And we're not talking about midnight. We're talking about 8 o'clock. The early bird special is barely over. So let's see what his answer was.
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look, what I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting the fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. I love my staff, but they add things all the time. At the very end. I'm catching hell from my wife for that. Anyway.
See, here's the problem. You're not supposed to be accommodating some old guy with dementia with extra sleep. He's supposed to be up to the role, the task, the job, the responsibilities of being president. And he's not. It just makes it obvious that the bureaucrats, the deep swamp creatures, are running things behind the scenes. Now we're going to go to CNN, and Fake Tapper's got a couple of rhinos.
Alyssa, this comes obviously after the New York Times editorial board called on President Biden to step down and not run for re-election. What's your reaction?
They're right on every word of it. But I think the part of this that's so devastating to folks like Congressman Kinzinger and myself, who've been raising alarm bells about Donald Trump for years now, is the opportunity to litigate the case of how unfit Donald Trump is, what a historically unfit character he is for office, was at that CNN debate. And President Biden proved himself unable to litigate that case. And I'm squarely in the camp of the Democrats need to come up with another option, or they're undermining their strongest message, which is a true message this cycle. Democracy is on the line, so they need to put up a fighter who is better equipped to litigate this case against Donald Trump for the American people.
So I want to ask both of you this. Well, I'll start with you, Congressman. Let's assume President Biden sticks with what he's doing now and refuses to step down. You don't want Donald Trump to be elected president. What are you going to do in November? You're a Republican who feels abandoned by the Trump part of your party.
Oh, that's easy. I'll vote for Joe Biden. I mean, the difference here is, yes, Joe Biden needs to execute a better case if he's going to stay in. He missed a lot of opportunities at the debate, but he's a decent man. Nobody questions that. He cares about the future of this country. Nobody questions that. Donald Trump cares about one person. He cares about Donald Trump, and he'll burn the country down to get there. It's very clear. We saw January 6th. Let's not forget. He refused to give up power. He watched for 3 hours until law enforcement turned the tide. He didn't say a word, and then he only begrudgingly said a word on behalf of law enforcement or send his people home. It is a no-brainer to me. I'd actually vote for Mayor McCheese if he was running against Donald Trump. So in my mind, there is nobody less qualified to serve in the Oval Office than Donald Trump.
Oh my goodness, this dude is telling some absolute zingers. Donald Trump is selfish? He's out there doing this for himself? Why would he take all this responsibility on? He wouldn't have had all these criminal charges. He wouldn't have been facing these trumped up criminal charges if he wasn't going to run for president. That's a fact. So if he cared about himself, he would be at Mar-a-Lago playing golf 24/7, living off his billions, spending time with his kids, his grandkids, living the good life. It just doesn't make sense what this clown's talking about. And then the other thing he keeps going on about, because he's a neocon, is January 6th. Get over it, bruh. Get over it. Wasn't an insurrection. He told everyone to go to the Capitol peacefully. Some clowns took it upon themselves to break in, do whatever they did. That's on them. But this dude has nefarious intentions. He's not interested in the country. He's wanting to gaslight everyone, just like the Democrats. And he would pick this walking carcass.
Well, Alyssa, just a quick thought to you. Who would you vote for if President Biden stays in the race?
This gets a lot more complicated since the debate. I just have to be honest. I was prepared to quietly vote for Biden because the stakes are so high. But having worked in the Department of Defense, the vice president isn't in the chain of command. Senior staff are not in the chain of command. I am genuinely worried about Joe Biden's fitness and ability to do the main structures of the presidency if he were to continue for another 4 years. He needs to prove to the public that he's going to be able to take that 3 a.m. phone call, that he's going to be able to work all hours if he needs to. Answer might be different if I was in Wayne County, Michigan. I'm a New York voter, but I am deeply, deeply concerned about both of the options right now.
Yeah. Trump's about to flip another New Yorker. Now, I never would have thought she would have even been considering voting for Trump. Now, I knew she was going to consider voting for Biden because she's like the other clown. They're just neocons or rhinos.
If Biden ends up running, potentially the Democrats could lose the Senate, the House, and the White House. And it's going to be a bloodbath. The blue states that we have held for many decades might potentially turn red.
Democrats are panicking over polling that shows New York is now a battleground state.
Wow.
Sticking with Biden has become political suicide. The Clintons are saying the party is sailing into a hurricane.
It reminds me of a book they made me read in college called Ship of Fools. A bunch of desperate people sailing into disaster. And, you know, I just think that cowards have never beat criminals in a war yet. And the way that you beat criminals is not to be cowards, is to take it directly on.
Biden, for the first time in 50 years, has his own party rooting against him. And it's not just that. Trump, the media, and the Democrats all want the same thing. Biden gone. The Times says longtime party loyalists are now reduced to hoping for another major public misstep by Biden, such as a serious stumble at his NATO news conference to convince the president that he should leave the race on his own. Democrats are literally praying that Biden falls over another sandbag. In June, Biden tripping would have been the Democrats' biggest nightmare. And now in July, it's their only hope. And his big boy NATO press conference could be the final dance. His first press conference where he won't get the questions ahead of time. But he should know no one's going to ask about NATO. Tomorrow's press conference is going to be so brutal that Dana Perino is advising the White House to cancel it, to save Joe's dignity and allow him to leave with some grace. Biden's whole presidency has been focused on how history will remember him. He spent hours with historians in the Oval. He's compared himself to Washington, Lincoln, and FDR. He has Steven Spielberg choreographing his campaign. But history will remember Biden for how he handles this. Not COVID, not the CHIPS Act, how he handles this moment. Is there going to be an extraction team sent into the White House with a straitjacket and a gurney? Or does Biden hold hostages until the convention, where he's going to dare the delegates to vote for someone else?
So there we have it, folks. Let's wrap this video up. Now, it looks like Biden's going to be stuck there. Now, it's either going to be Biden or it's going to be Kamala. Because apparently the donors have invested too much money. Joe Biden ain't going to part with that money. They're in over $100 million. And if someone was going to get that money and be able to use it in the campaign, it would be Kamala. Now, the only problem is Kamala, I don't know if she still is, but she was less popular than Joe Biden. But I think even Biden has dipped lower than Kamala now. Now, all the Republicans, they are cheering Biden on. They want him to stay there because they know they can beat him in a landslide. Now, apparently he's agreed to the second debate as well. Now, he's done that. You know he hasn't got all his faculties. He doesn't have everything upstairs. Now, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what you think. Is Biden going to continue on? I wonder if we've got any undecideds out there. Let me know in the comments. Are you prepared to vote for Trump this time? Now, before we dip, don't forget to hit that like, smash the subscribe, ring the notification bell, and I'll catch you in the next video.